of 7 leagues, and the semifinals or final here this week. So can't complain.
I keep waiting for my fantasy league to like flip over so I can see our matchup next week and like who he's got playing and everything.
You got to keep like moving it over. When I looked at it, it didn't look like he set a lineup yet because there was no projections.
Yeah,
at least as of now. I think it's like a Wednesday thing. I saw Sleeper does that too for the one league that I'm in.
Yeah, usually play today.
Yeah,
which is fair.
Looking at it now, he looks like he did set a lineup, and the projections were predicted to win by 3. Actually, 143 to 140.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, Joe Burrow, DeAndre Swift, CMC, ETN, CeeDee Lamb, Christian Kirk, Justin Jefferson, Darren Waller, and the Bills D. So, going to be a tough out, but no Jalen Hurts for him. So, that should help us slightly.
Yeah. We'll see. We will see. Hey, for now, we got some start sits. Speaking of Jalen Hurts, Minshew's in here, so we'll bring him up eventually. But kicking it off with some Jaguars, we have Lawrence at the New York Jets or Purdy versus the Commanders. Who do you want?
Yeah, pretty easily Lawrence for me here. It's Thursday, and the Jets are a good defense, but he's been hot, and he looks to really have taken that step forward this year. New coaching staff, second year, and I think you can trust him. Purdy's been good. Commanders' defense hasn't been great statistically, but I think they are a tougher out. And Purdy should be fine. Should not great, but not not great, but not horrible. Just kind of somebody middle of the pack. But I think there's really more upside with Trevor, so I'll go Trevor.
Yeah, I'm with you. Kind of regretting trading him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a pretty easy one. I mean, I could definitely see a world where Purdy outperforms, but Jets defense, pretty good defense. But yeah, the Jags as a whole look good, and Lawrence looks pretty good too. So I'm with you. I'll take Lawrence.
And next up, Lamar Jackson versus the Falcons, or Justin Fields versus the Bills.
I again assuming Lamar plays. I don't think I want to. He's got such a good matchup, but rushing quarterback coming off a knee injury hasn't performed from a fantasy perspective that much this year anyway. I think I'll go with Fields, but there's some hesitation there given, could be a snowy kind of game. So it might not be great for Fields either, but I like that situation more than Lamar and the knee injury and all that stuff. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, for all the reasons you said, there's maybe a little hesitation for Fields, but I think it should be a pretty similar maybe game script that we saw with the Eagles and Bears, and Fields just fine. Obviously not a ton of passing, but he did throw 2 touchdowns. Didn't rush for a touchdown, but got his fair amount of yards, and I think the game script should be pretty similar there against the Bills. Just a little worried about Lamar coming off the injury. If he plays, I think we still haven't got anything definitive on that yet, right?
No. Just that I don't think he practiced today. So obviously it's not ideal, but still early.
Yeah, I think there's going to be situations where you have to play Lamar, but this isn't one of them. Fields has been really good, and I think you can trust him here.
Awesome. Last quarterback one in, and it's Mr. Minshew. Would you rather play Minshew at Dallas or Goff at Carolina?
I think this is the closest one here for me. I do like Minshew. I think he's going to be fine. I think you're going to look at like a 250-2, probably a turnover, right? Maybe an interception. But that Dallas defense is tough, so I think limits kind of that super boom upside. But he does have the weapons. I mean, he played fine last year without having a guy like AJ Brown at his disposal. You get AJ Brown, you get a second year Devonta Smith. So I do think the weapons are there for Minshew, and I think he's someone that you can pick up and play if needed. But I think there's a little more stability with Jared Goff. He's getting weapons healthier. We're getting Jameson Williams more integrated in the offense, and it should be. Carolina's been able to hang around in games, so if they can play decent football, this could be a game where you're going to need some passing from Goff. It should be at least decent weather down in Carolina, not one of these northern games that could see some rough weather and affect the game. So I'll take Goff here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Minshew could be fine, but coming in for his first real action of the year and facing a good defense in Dallas could be low scoring. So yeah, I'll stick with Goff pretty easily here. I mean, I could definitely see a world where Minshew's fine. We know he can air it out. But I really don't see the reason to roll the dice. So yeah, I'm with you. I'll go Goff.
Right. Moving on to the running backs, half PPR. Joe Mixon at New England or Walker at Kansas City if he plays. I think he didn't practice today, Ken Walker, or is maybe limited. So still some TBD on his availability, but Mixon, Ken Walker.
Yeah, assuming he plays, maybe gets a practice in. Like, I don't know if I'd play him if, he just doesn't practice all week and then he's suddenly active. But provided he gets a practice in, I think I'd go with Walker. The Mixon matchup's kind of worrisome, where Walker should be used plenty against Kansas City, I would assume. But pretty close. Hopefully I'm wrong, considering we'll be starting Mixon. But yeah, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think if everyone's healthy and we see practicing from Walker, I like that. They're going to need to rely on him if they're going to have a chance against Kansas City. Joe Mixon, I think we'll see what New England does. They've been pretty good against the run. Do they shut down Mixon and force him to beat him to the pass? I think we haven't really seen a ton from Mixon, recently since that huge game in Week 9. So maybe Bill Belichick elects to try to take out Ja'Marr Chase or work on the passing game, and the running game can kind of benefit from that. So I think it's not a bad play either way. You're probably looking at RB2 flex category for both of these guys. But if everyone's healthy, I think I'll take Walker as well.
Yeah, and if I'm wondering if the Patriots' run defense might be a product of the team they're playing. I mean, they're always got a good run defense, but I'm thinking they play Buffalo, not a great. Singletary's fine, but not great. They play Miami, who's been good for fantasy, but like they're fine. The Jets were good at the beginning of the year, but their run game's kind of petered out. So I'm just wondering if maybe I'm trying to pull up their schedule. They're the Raiders at Arizona. Minnesota's good. Obviously, Indy, Week 9. I don't know if JT was still playing or not, so who knows about that. Detroit early on when Swift was out. I mean, it could just be a product of facing teams, not great running teams, but we'll see, I guess. Let us hope.
Yeah, we'll see. Next up here, full PPR, Travis Etienne on Thursday at the Jets or Rashad White at Arizona.
Yeah, this one is difficult. Etienne probably has a higher upside, but a tougher matchup. Rashad White, splitting carries with Fournette, so I think definitely going to cap his upside, but has the easier matchup of the two. I think I lean that way just because I don't think Etienne's done anything in a little while. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he's been pretty average.
Most recent week he had a good week. This last week against Dallas, 19 for 100, 2 catches for 24. Didn't get in the end zone, but still scored 13 points in PPR.
Anything prior to that? Like the
previous
weeks?
Few dud weeks there. 3, 8, 0 coming off the bye. So definitely was cooled off after having a pretty good middle of the season going into his bye.
Yeah. And kind of the same. Rashad White's cooled off a little bit as well. They're using Fournette more. I think I lean that way for the matchup. That's really what it just comes down to for me.
Yeah, and I think with White, you're seeing him involved in the passing game. This most recent week was an odd one, only 11 carries and 2 targets. But other than that, the last 3 weeks, he's been at 5, 8, 9 targets. So you love to see that, and the usage is still there. The matchup's really good, really down the stretch here, Arizona, Carolina, and Atlanta. So really good, for both him and Fournette. I do like that, worried, that, your floor is a lot lower there. So I think, upside play, I kind of like the White option. But if you're looking for maybe a higher floor, you're going to get more work, I think, out of Travis Etienne. It is a Thursday game, so those are always a little messy as well. You'll have a couple guys go off, but can be a little wonky sometimes from a fantasy perspective. So I think White, but this one is really close for me. And I think if you want a safer option, I think it's ETN.
Okay, perfect. Speaking of not safe options, PPR, would you rather go with Moss versus Chargers or Singletary at Chicago?
I think this is easily Singletary for me. I mean, good matchup for him. Obviously, weather, we'll see how that affects, but I think it's only going to help him if there's bad weather there. I think Moss was a mirage. They had a huge lead and they didn't want to give it up, so they gave him the ball 25 times. And then you see what that did. They blew the lead. This is a matchup where I expect them to be down without a guy like Jonathan Taylor, really dynamic player. I think you're going to have Zach Moss, involved, but you're going to need to throw the ball a little more to keep up with this Chargers team. And I think I probably would rather play like a Deion Jackson here instead of, especially in full PPR, instead of Zach Moss. I'm not thrilled with either, but I like Deion Jackson more. And then this matchup, definitely Singletary.
Yeah, I'm with you ultimately. I'll go Singletary. I don't trust Zach Moss. With that said, Foles is going to be the quarterback for the Colts. The Chargers, one of the weakest teams against the run. So, like, if they want to do like an establish the run kind of situation, they might be able to do something like that, and that would really benefit Moss. So I think he's probably got higher upside, just because we haven't seen a ton of upside at a Singletary. But the risk is immense. It might not even be him. And like you said, it could all just be a mirage. Like we've seen plenty of Zach Moss on a good team to suggest he doesn't have it. So yeah, I'll go with Singletary, but if you want a moonshot, I'd probably go Moss.
All right. Brings us over to wide receivers. We have full PPR, Gabe Davis at Chicago or Deontay Johnson versus the Raiders.
Yeah, this is pretty easy. Gabe Davis has been pretty average for quite a while now. Has the snowy game. Deontay Johnson has been getting better and has been pretty solid for a few weeks now. So I think it's easily him for me. There's really no debate in my mind. How about you?
Yeah, I think the only thing is you keep an eye on the injury. He's been limited in practice today again. But coming off a season high, 10 catches, 98 yards. So if he's healthy, I think you have to play him. Maybe you can argue there's more boom with Gabe Davis if, he finally can put up a big week there with Josh. But, this is definitely a disappointing year for any of the Gabe Davis truthers that, went all in on him and you were expecting him to really take that next step forward. Whereas you still have Deontay, he still looks, like a good player. It's just you have that young quarterback that's hurting you. But Mitch Trubisky, likely the quarterback, I think. But even if it's Pickett, I think it's, Deontay is someone you got to roll with here.
Moving on, half-point PPR. Garrett Wilson versus the Jaguars or Christian Kirk at the Jets.
Yeah, pretty close, I think. Kirk probably a little more, boom. And obviously these are both a Thursday game, so you don't have, the full week rest benefiting one versus the other. I'm just going to go with the better player in my mind. That's Garrett Wilson here. Even if it is with Zach Wilson, throwing the ball, Garrett Wilson still, came up with another good week last week in half-point scoring. We're looking at 4 for 98 on 9 targets. So Christian Kirk still could boom and is probably still a decent play in most places, but Garrett Wilson, I think at this point is just kind of every week start. He's proven it with really quarterback, after quarterback at this point.
Yep. Yeah. If he had a down week last week with Zach Wilson, I'd probably be more down on him, but he didn't. He was solid. So yeah, I'm with you for pretty much all the same reasons. He's got plenty of boom to him. He's more reliable. Kirk, as we've seen in the past, is kind of like hyper upside is, the top option for the Jaguars, but also has a tougher matchup. Jets defense pretty good. So yeah, I'll go with Mr. Wilson as well.
All right. Next up here, we're talking boom, halfway in PPR. We've got Zay Jones coming off a huge week in that same matchup there against the Jets. Or Amari Cooper back at home here versus the Saints.
Yeah, I said every week, I'm not trusting Amari Cooper or Deshaun Watson until I see something out of him. So I'll go with Zay Jones, and I'm not really thinking twice about it. He's probably got the lower floor, I guess. I mean, I'd have to really look at his, let's pull him up real quick. Let's look at his past scoring here to see what his floor is. He got 2 points against Detroit, but other than that, man, looking at his past few weeks, 32-17, the 2.6, 22-10. I mean, his floor is pretty good outside of that too. So yeah, I'd probably go with Zay Jones in all situations. A similar floor, a higher upside. Pretty easy for me.
Yeah, weird to think, but that's what happens at the end of the fantasy football season. You have these situations that you don't think you'd be in. So yeah, I think it's Zay Jones staying the Flames here. Or he could be fine, but it still looks like they're kind of getting up to speed with each other, him and Watson. So I don't think you're going to really be thrilled by many weeks here down the stretch. You hope that there's brighter skies going into next year, because Amari still looks like he has it. It's not like he lost it. We thought maybe that's why the Cowboys wanted to move on from him, but still look like he has it this year. But I think you're probably looking at next year for some more hopefulness there out of Mark Cooper.
And the last question, we got a flex question here. Your boy, Christian Watson, or J.K. Dobbins, Watson at Miami, or J.K. Dobbins versus the Falcons PPR.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to see about J.K. Dobbins. I believe he, rested today. So, you're looking at making sure he's healthy as we get closer to the end of the week. But Falcons are a great matchup for Dobbins. I think he is pretty locked into an RB2 this week. PPR hurts him a little because he hasn't been catching the ball much since really all the season, but definitely since he's been back. But he's been really efficient on the ground. So I like the floor of Dobbins. You are likely going to need to throw the ball there, for Green Bay to keep up with Miami, and they need to win because they still technically are alive. Watson, I think you have the boom out of him for sure, but I do worry with the with teams game planning for him. He'll probably get the top corner there in Miami, and we see Romeo Doubs back. We see Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb all involved. So I think Rodgers is really going to try to spread it out. I think you have the most upside with Watson. I think here in this situation, I'd probably take the floor play of Dobbins. I actually have this decision in a half-point scoring, so it makes it a little bit easier for a flex play in one of my leagues here. And I think I'm going to go with Dobbins. It's close, but I think I'm going to go with Dobbins.
Yeah, I'm with you, especially given the quarterback situation. Like, if Lamar plays, they're going to lean on Dobbins, provided he's fine. If Lamar doesn't play, they're going to lean on Dobbins. So, it's just the guaranteed workload. If you need sky high boom, you're I'm blanking on the word. You're not the favorite. You're the underdog. There we go. If you're the deep underdog, I was going to say anti-favorite. If you are the deep underdog, Watson's got your upside, 30 points, boom. But if it's a normal game, I'd probably go Dobbins. I'd hope they'd lean on him. But you got to check those reports, see if he's okay.
All right. So we'll move over to the trade portion here as we are here at the end of the season, looking at full-on Dynasty. First one here, Superflex and tight end premium. Trevor Lawrence, Sky Moore, and the 208 in this year's draft. Or Daniel Jones, Jahan Dotson, and the 107.
This is very difficult, I think. I don't really care that much about Sky Moore. Maybe, but he hasn't shown too much this year. Daniel Jones is the problem. Like getting Dotson and the 107 is really nice. Then you look and you're like, well, you could have a starter in Daniel Jones, but maybe not. Like I haven't heard people calling for his head this year, but he hasn't been great enough to guarantee a job next year either. Or maybe 2 years down the line. Whereas Lawrence is ascending seemingly. Like we're seeing what he was drafted for, and it's a super flex league. And so, I mean, getting him, a young quarterback like that in a super flex league would be huge. He was getting a back end second and Sky Moore with him, which just isn't a lot. But I think given it's super flex, I have to go that way. I don't like it. I hate super flex leagues. But I think I got to go up for Lawrence's potential and what we've seen. What about you? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think this is close. I think it's a decently to fair trade. I think I would go with the Lawrence side, unless you're like loaded at quarterback, and in Superflex leagues, you can never really have too many. Unless you're sitting there with like let's say somehow you have Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes, right, and Lawrence is your third. You probably still don't want to make that trade, right, because they're so important. But I think you have to be loaded to really want to make this move, because if you're trading away Lawrence, getting Dotson's nice, but he's still going to be in not the best quarterback situation and still behind Terry, who just got that deal. 107's nice, but you're probably not getting one of the top tier quarterbacks. You're probably not going to get Bijan Robinson there. So I think I would go with Lawrence after what we saw. Maybe earlier in the season, it's a little more comparable because you're still worried about Trevor. But for me here, I think it's pretty easily Trev here.
Okay.
Trevor's side.
Yep, that makes sense. We're aligned. Next one, just standard PPR. Jalen Hurts and Cooper Kupp, or Dak Prescott and Christian McCaffrey. Big boys right here.
This is a big one. I think this is a pretty fair trade. It's not super flex, so I think that leans it a little more on the CMC side. There's probably some, Kupp and CMC, it's probably somewhat comparable, but we'll see how Kupp recovers. It probably has maybe a longer shelf life than CMC, but I don't know that we have those boom years left. He's probably, not going to be that top 5-10 guy anymore. He could be. We'll see with Stafford, how he and Stafford both look when they come back. But we know what we have in McCaffrey, and I think that offense is only going to get better next year. I guess depends what else you have, but Dak's not a bad starter to move forward with. Obviously Hurts looks like one of the top guys in the league, but it could be a good situation, to capitalize on that. Downgrade to Dak, which isn't that much of a downgrade from a fantasy perspective. And year to year, you're going to see quarterbacks vary. You'll have your Josh Allen and your Pat Mahomes, but even they have got years where they'll kind of step back to the back end of the QB1. So I do think I'd probably take the CMC side. If this is super flex, I'd probably lean the other way. But I think here I'm leaning the CMC side.
Yeah, I find this one difficult. I think I do lean the other side. I think and it mostly comes down to just the wanting Hurts over Dak, I think. I think Kupp can be a 1 in the future. And I think we always need to keep in mind that running backs fall off hard. And you couldn't sell McCaffrey, or you didn't sell McCaffrey at his peak a couple years ago. Then you kind of got burned for a few years. And I feel like you've been given another chance to move on from him before, the bottom falls out in whatever, a year or two, or whatever it may be. Running backs get hurt in the Shanahan system all the time. It could be next week. So I think I take the Hurts side, but I mean, I agree with everything you said too. I think it's really close. It's a good trade.
All right. Next up here, another Superflex double tight end. So don't look like we have a 10 premium, but you're starting 2. Travis Kelce and Geno Smith, or Deshaun Watson and a 23 first.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever gotten a question on here with a start 2 tight end kind of situation. Despite his age, I think I'm going the Kelce side. You're getting, it's hard, it can be hard to find 2 tight ends. So starting off with the best is a good start. And then Geno, a very good super flex that I don't see any reason why he wouldn't start next year. Watson, I would expect to return to form next year. Late first is solid. But, a late first isn't going to get you a good quarterback to help you with the super flex side. In a 2 tight end league, it's not going to get you a top tight end either. So yeah, I'm on the Kelce Geno side, I think pretty easily. I do worry about Kelce's age, but seems fine this year. No reason to doubt him for now. So I'm taking that side.
Yeah. I mean, I think even I'm on the fence because it's like, if you're rebuilding, I guess you could argue the other side. You get the pick, you get maybe what Watson could become. It is super flex. But I think, if you're in the middle, or definitely if you're contending, I would just ride whatever we have with Kelce out. I think he, his career is extended because he gets to play with Pat Mahomes. I think he's going to want to stay there, for the rest of his career. And we'll see how long that is. Maybe he retires this year. I doubt it. But he's a guy that wants to go out on top. Looks like he still has a lot left. I think he probably got at least, 2 to 3 years left. And maybe he just stays around even after his prime is over, to kind of just be that stalwart there and try to continue to win with that team. So I think I'll take the Kelce side here, but I can understand if you're rebuilding, you want to get that pick. You probably get. You think maybe one of the top tight ends then the late first or prospect, and take Watson because you're looking at the super flex. So I can understand going with the upside there, but I wouldn't be surprised if Geno and Watson are pretty similar when when all said and done, even next year, from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, and that's a fair point to the rebuild. If I was rebuilding and I'd give up Kelce, in a 2 tight end league, I'd like to get a tight end back, man. Try to send Kelce and get Dulcich or McBride or even Hawkinson, like a younger guy that's at least startable. It's so risky going in with no one, unless you already have 2.
Yeah, maybe you have another guy and you're planning on drafting one, and you're rebuilding, so you don't necessarily really care if you're winning or not.
Yeah. Like if that team has Dulcich and Hawk, like you got a starter in Hawk and a good upside young guy in Dulcich, then yeah, cool. But I'd really like to get someone back. But anyway, sticking with Hawkinson's in the next one. Sticking with some tight end talk, PPR, Goddard and Calvin Ridley, if you've forgotten that name, or Hawkinson and Brian Robinson.
Yeah, I think I'd take the Goddard and Ridley side. I mean, Hawkinson obviously has had some, upside and some big plays, but I feel like he's even been disappointing there in Minnesota. I don't know what it is. Like, he is always in that top 12, right? When you're thinking of tight ends, but it just doesn't seem like he's been able to break into the top 5, whereas Goddard clearly looks the case, and paired up with a young quarterback, good receiving core. I think he's the guy, and I'm intrigued to see what Ridley has, right? Maybe he's not a wide receiver 1 anymore, but on what I think is going to be a good offense. I think he's could fit right in there with the Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. Let's say he could easily be the wide receiver 2 between them. I like Brian Robinson. Didn't love him coming out, so I think it's a good time to capitalize on him and buy low on a Ridley. Maybe try to make an argument that it's an even swap at tight end, but I think it is a pretty good upgrade to Goddard.
Yeah, I think it's an upgrade as well. I think what we've been seeing from Hawk is just what he is. Kelce retires and Hawk's a free agent, goes to Kansas City to talk. But, for now, he is what he is, I think. So yeah, I think Goddard's solid. Not that Goddard's, not that he's been the world's best tight end either. But in fact, I'm asking you, Will, as an Eagles fan, there's been a lot of hype for Goddard for years now. He's been an Eagle for 5 years now. Ertz at one time was top 3 in the league. Goddard was the heir apparent. He hasn't gotten close to top 3. Are you as an Eagles fan disappointed with Goddard?
No, I mean, I think obviously the team has been good this year, and that's helped. But I think we saw when he's healthy, he's the number 2 target on the team. Smith was definitely behind him, and we'll see what happens when they come back, because Smith has played really well. But I think Goddard looks the part. I think he is a top 5 dynasty tight end easily when you look at who's there. Who do you really want to have going forward? I mean, you could definitely argue Kelsey, but you're looking at a shorter lifespan. Mark Andrews, probably is in there definitively. Then you got George Kittle, Pitts. You're hard pressed to say that Goddard isn't right there with the two of them. So just as a fan, thrilled to see that there. When you're looking at it from a fantasy lens, you're looking at the receivers that are there as competition, whereas as a fan, you want to have as many of those good weapons there to complement each other as possible. And you're going to see games where one does well, games where another does well, and that's a good thing. Whereas in Dynasty, it's not so much.
Yeah, there you go. Very fair, very fair. And then like Ridley, obviously Ridley was really good, but he hasn't played in 2 years now. Basically, he'll be on a new team, new quarterback, so we'll see. But he's young enough to where he'll be fine. Brian Robinson's been fine. It's hard to lose a running back, but I like that upgrade from Hawk to Goddard. So I'm with you. I will take the Goddard side.
All right. And our last one here, Dynasty Superflex, Kyler Murray, the 208 and the 308 here in 2023, or Jordan Love, Mike Williams, and the 107.
Can I remind you of a name that you haven't heard of in a while?
Yes, please.
But it actually hasn't been long at all. Bryce Love.
Bryce Love. Huh. Yeah, wow. It's been a while since we've really thought or heard about him.
But it actually had. I feel like it's been like 3 years.
Yeah.
And that other...
and he was a top tier guy before he went back and injured himself.
Yeah, who was the Washington running back that was really good and got in trouble with the law?
I know you're talking about.
Bryce Hall came after him. We traded for him at one point. All this was not that long ago.
No. And you said he went from Washington to San Francisco?
No. Me and you traded for him. Darius Geis.
Yes, at LSU.
So Bryce Love came in after him in Washington. But anyway, I saw Love, and he was the first name to pop into mind, believe it or not. But anyway, to the question at hand, I think it's pretty easily the Kyler side. Like, it's super flex. I know he's been disappointing, but you can't give up on Kyler Murray in a super flex on the hope that Love forces a trade and he's a starter and he is actually good. Mike Williams, obviously very good. 107, solid. But for Kyler, like, wipe all the pieces out. Would I trade Mike Williams in the 107 for Kyler in like the 208? Yeah. In a super flex? Yeah. Like the potential that Love could be something if he can get traded isn't, like, I get it, but I'm not trading Kyler for that roll of the dice.
Yeah. Kyler's definitely the best asset here. And I guess you could say, there's the argument that Kyler's hurt this year. He still never really took that step. Like, he's had flashes, he's had stretches where he's been good, but never really fully put it together. I'd be interested to see like what his finishes have been as a quarterback here, right? You see, what is he, year 4, 5 at this point, 5 or 6, because he just got that new contract, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you if you give me a minute.
Yeah, let's see if I can pull it up here.
So this year, it doesn't matter. We don't care about this year, right?
Yeah.
So weeks 1 through 17, I'm not going to count the last week because nobody plays on the last week. Last year, he was quarterback 10. Let's see here. The year before that, 2020, quarterback 2.
Okay.
So that's pretty good. 2019, let's see here. He was 7. 2018, he was not on the list, so I'm assuming he was drafted.
It might have been, when he was drafted there.
So
because he just got the contract, but it makes sense to give to him before, you get into that.
Yeah. So one flash year, basically.
The end of it. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's more an NFL thing. He's more disappointing from just an NFL standpoint than a fantasy standpoint. But like, yeah, I wouldn't mind. And obviously, you're trading low now with the injury, but I wouldn't mind trying to get out from under him. I don't think this is the trade to do it, though.
Yep. I am with you.
Mhm.
Cool. Well, hey, that's going to take care of the start sit episode for this week. One more to go. We are done. Always fun. So good luck this week, everyone. Tune in next Tuesday for the waiver show. Until then, trust your board.